The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
26 minutes before the hour, Wednesday morning, 18th of May, 56 the high today. Although we have spoken privately, has not been speaking publicly until the book, as they say, drops. Where's the birth certificate? Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jerry Corsi joins us. Good morning, sir, and here we go. Thank you for coming on the show.
Peter, it's great, and thanks for understanding that until the book was published, I had contractual obligations that kept me off the air.
All right. We spoke when the birth certificate was suddenly, there was a press conference called, and the president walks out on the stage, and there's a birth certificate. What I struggle with, and so many other people struggle with, after all of those years, hiring attorneys, doing all of it, why then?
Well, and I think the publication of the book, I called the book, entitled it, Where's the Birth Certificate? Because, Peter, I wanted to force Obama's hand. People say, well, he could produce the birth certificate, and then isn't your book irrelevant? I said, absolutely not. I said, well, first of all, the research in the book, I've known Barack Obama was not born in Hawaii, and I figured that any document the White House released would have to be fraudulent. But it was the basic strategy that John Kennedy used in the Bay of Pigs crisis, the Cuban Missile Crisis, when he said that Khrushchev blinked. Remember that key moment when
the other guy blinked? I think it might have been Bobby Kennedy that said the other guy blinked. Yeah, the other guy blinked.
And that's what Barack Obama did, anticipating that this book was going to be out. He blinked. He obviously felt the pressure and felt, hey, we better release a birth certificate. If this were available, why wasn't it released 3 years ago instead of the short-form certificate of live birth? Why do we have all that argument for 3 years that was the only birth document Hawaii would release?
I don't understand this.
Well, I was told by inside sources about 3 weeks before it occurred.
One was coming.
Yeah,
Corsi. Joe Fair and I spoke about that.
Yeah, and in fact, I knew it was coming when the wife of one of the top officials of the Department of Health walked in and looked at the book and said, it's here suddenly. And my sources in Hawaii called me immediately and said that the document had been forged and placed in the book. The White House, when they released the births, and so first of all, I was pleased to see that we'd gotten to Obama. Now Obama is on the record, before he'd been drifting, 35,000 feet above the eligibility discussion. Obama personally came into that press conference in the White House and said, this is my birth certificate. And secondly, now the whole administration, the Obama administration, its success or failure, staying in office or being out of office, depends on that particular document being authentic. If it's shown to be fraudulent, then a crime was committed. And Barack Obama cannot say, oh, no, I meant to show you this birth certificate, not that one. He's stuck with this document, and I wanted him pinned down that way. Notice that when the White House released the birth document, they did not submit the original paper copy to forensic examination.
We've had people come here in the studio, and they call it layering. Jerry, they took the whole thing apart. I was amazed. Now, was that with intent, or is that just, as someone said, was it so bad that it was done by Jimmy down the hall?
Well, first of all, it was amazing to me that the White House released a document that could be that easily manipulated.
Exactly.
And it was released in electronic form.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, the document was not created in electronic form in 1961. It was a paper document. And so this was already a manipulation that was admitted just by the way the White House released it. To answer your question about amateur forging of the document, when you're president of the United States, Peter, and you want to forge a document, you can't put out a request for proposal.
So that's why this idea of Jimmy down the hall makes it?
Barack Obama was stuck with the people around him to forge the document.
You believe this is forged?
Oh, 100%. It's not just that it's layered and it can be manipulated. It's clear that the text has been manipulated, and the document has been rearranged from several. It's a composite of several originals with new text put on it. I'll be writing about this more, But I'll just point out a couple little things to you. I mean, take a look at that rubber stamp that Alvin, what's his name,
Yeah.
Onaka, stamped at the bottom of the document. It says the records. Well, the is TXE. It's not THE. It's TXE.
But that could that just simply be a mistake?
No, I've looked at hundreds of those stampings. There's never been one that is a TXE. It was a letter placed in there incorrectly. An H does not bend into an X that way. It isn't a result of a smudge or a smear. And by the way, blow up the A in Alvin to about, you don't have to blow it up very much, 800 magnification, anywhere from there to about 3600. There's a smiley face in the A. It's astonishing. I'll be publishing this tomorrow in WND. The smiley face seems to have been created by putting an E over the loop of the A, and I'm wondering if the forger didn't embed their signature, E initials, EW, into that seal. Go up to the top of the document. I'm just going to give you a couple samples. Under the box which asks whether the baby was born, if twins or triplets, first, second, or third, the box on first and the box under second, under high magnification, are identical in their pixel structure. No two boxes drawn in a document will show up identically in this kind of analysis unless one has been copied and pasted.
What?
So one of the source documents that was used, I'm pretty confident, was originally a twin or a triplet in which those boxes, first or second, had been marked as the order of the baby's birth. The box that was checked on the original document was eradicated, removed, and the box, the first, second, the one that was left, was copied and pasted next to it. That kind of manipulation of the document is clear throughout the document. I give you about 50 instances of manipulation of the document.
If you're just joining us, of course, Jerry Corsi's here. The book is now out. Where's the birth certificate? His publisher is WND Books. The book's in hardback, and you'll see it probably everywhere. Depends on how this book is treated, because there were three things. This is my belief, Jerry, and you tell me what you think. There were three things that was going on. Number one was there were at least, I think, 12 states that I had proposed legislation on you got to produce before you can be on the ballot. Number two, of course, was Trump. And number three, of course, was you. And then suddenly, without any fanfare, any announcement, we understand a woman attorney flies to Hawaii from Seattle out of the law firm that has been protecting the president. Was it Coey Perkins or Perkins Coey?
Right, Perkins Coy.
Perkins Coy, I'm sorry. And that chief attorney has now joined the Obama staff. But this was a woman.
I have a picture of him in the exhibits in the book, the 125 exhibits in the glossy section in the middle. I'll give you his name in a second.
Yeah, but long story short, they send a woman attorney to Hawaii, and his name is Robert Bauer, isn't it?
Robert Bauer.
And his wife is connected, Anita Dunn. She's very connected to the administration.
She was, one of the communications specialists who had to leave after she made some embarrassing comments.
Exactly. And so Mr. Bauer has left his law firm in Seattle and moved to D.C., and then they send a woman attorney, I can't think of her name. She flies to Hawaii and gets it and brings it back on a PDF file. Doesn't bring back the document, but brings back and then releases it electronically. This is all that anybody in the mainstream press ever wanted. And no one questioned it. And then less than 24 hours go by, and these experts step in and start to discern it, start to take it apart. And it's amazing. It's almost like magic. Parts of it can move. Letters stay, like in the K in Kenya, K in Kansas. They stay, and the rest of it moves. And there's all these people going, well, what is up with this? But, of course, everybody's been slapped so hard, been called kooks and racist and conspiratorial and whatever the hell, kooky and whatever the hell else people want to call anybody who now asks, because the second round of questions now can't be asked.
Well, Peter, see, except that I published the book and I don't care.
Now, I don't care either, but my point is that now no one is allowed to ask.
Well, if this had been the Watergate era, and someone like Obama, who's so protected, was president, Bernstein and Woodward, the two investigative reporters of the Washington Post, would have called for a meeting in the White House. Richard Nixon would have had them in the Oval Office, and Bernstein and Woodward would have asked, now, Mr. President, did you have anything to do with Watergate? And Nixon would have said, No, I'm glad you asked. I had nothing to do with Watergate, boys.
And they would have walked away.
And they would have said, "Thanks, Mr. President. We
Yeah.
apologize, but we had to ask. Now we can close that case."
Hey, and this
And
what I mean the whole. I'm thinking to myself yesterday or the day before we spoke with Terry Lakin. Why didn't he save Terry Lakin's bacon?
well, in fact, the same document that was released just a few, to save Obama from the pressure, was not released to prevent Terry Lakin from losing his commission in the Army and to going to prison, which shows again that Barack Obama has zero regard for anybody but himself. And to me, further questions whether the document is legitimate. Because if all the new information was if the only information that was new on this document was the hospital at Kapiolani and that the doctor's name was Sinclair,
Right.
If that's the simple document that they always had,
What was the big deal?
Why didn't they release
Thank
it
you.
even 3 years ago?
Thank you.
Instead of the certificate of live birth.
I need to do this, sir. I need to take a pause, and I know you have some new info this morning. You're going to give it to us after the pause. Jerry Corsi's here. Where's the birth certificate? Try and get Miss Calhoun on. We have an endorsement for this is going to be good, for Michael Hancock. Also, Mickey Booth in Hawaii was going to speak with us this morning as well. And this whole, isn't it interesting watching the press that can't find anything, and for 10 years Schwarzenegger has a kid. A lot to talk about. You hang on, 630 KHOW. All right, 10 before the hour, 550, 630 KHOW, 56 the high today. We're going to speak with Mickey Booth after the top of the hour. Miss Calhoun from Westward, 56 the high today. Dr. Jerry Corsi is with us. You know what's interesting, Doc, is the Denver Post last Wednesday, and I kept it, reviewed the book on Barack Obama's mom, Ann Dunham, and they gave her this glowing review. And, in fact, the book that's out now, we're trying very hard to get Janie Scott on the radio show, New York Times reporter, who frankly just repeats the nativity story. I'll read from her. In her first months as a college freshman, by 17 years of age, she got pregnant by her first boyfriend, an older student from Kenya named Barack Obama, who left her when the baby was 11 months old. Twice she married men. Stop right there. That's a lie. The next one, twice she married, is a lie. Now this morning they review The Lies of Sarah Palin, Wednesday's books, Denver Post, and they just give it this. There's not a problem with this book. This is good stuff, and they call it The Myth of Sarah Palin, the dark story, often painful, cover up after cover up, lie after lie. Same newspaper, same book reviews. I'm fascinated by that because let's just take that for the first go round. How old was Barack Obama when his mother and father split, if they were ever together?
Well, he was about under 2 years old, and what I show in the book and the exhibits and discuss it at length is that Ann Dunham, mother, within 3 weeks of when the baby was born, left Hawaii and went to Seattle, where she enrolled at the University of Washington at Seattle, took night extension courses. I've got the transcript on page 204, Exhibit 85. Exhibit 86 shows her address in the Polk directory. Exhibit 87 shows a photograph of where she had her apartment, the home which she had her apartment. She lived there with the infant for 2 years, took classes, and did not return to Hawaii until after Barack Obama Sr. had left the islands. I can't find any evidence that mother and father lived together a day as man and wife. Barack Obama had an apartment on 11th Avenue in Seattle, in Honolulu, when they were married. Supposedly, there's no marriage certificate anyone's ever found, and the address that's in the newspaper birth announcements is the address of the grandparents, who I've always maintained were the ones who filed the birth, even though the baby was not born in Hawaii. I'm increasingly convinced that the baby was born in Kenya.
You really believe that, don't you?
Yes. Well, Peter, I've gotten the documents, and I discuss it in the book, from Kenya. I must now have 30 or 35 internal government documents. The government of Kenya began a search in 2007. Grandmother Sarah, the Obama's step-grandmother, has been saying, not just once in a recorded interview, but over years, that she was present at Obama's birth in Mombasa. And the government of Kenya searched with intelligence services for 3 years, and they came to the conclusion that the 1961 birth records had been criminally tampered so as to eliminate evidence of Obama's birth in Mombasa.
This man, there's a list of things. The Obama-Dunham marriage license, I don't think it doesn't exist. The divorce, which was released by an independent investigator, but pages are missing.
Right, pages which may have included adoption records.
All right, Neolani kindergarten records.
Right.
Soturo Dunham marriage license has never been released.
I list a whole chapter in here of the missing records and why they're important.
Soturo adoption records.
Correct.
Francis of Assisi School, that school app was released, but not by, that was when it came out where he has proclaimed another faith. But that's not him, he's a kid. Punahou School app, missing.
Correct.
Punahou School records, missing. Neolani third grade. Now you got that weird picture where he's supposed to be someplace else, but he's a picture with this other little kid.
Scott, in a way. Scott, I've got the picture right here. I'll look at
the whole Connecticut SSN issue.
Yes. Is using a Social Security number issued in Connecticut.
Selective
where
service.
Barack Obama was never in Connecticut.
The Selective Service registration, which has been that's been tampered. Occidental College, financial aid, passport. You do a good piece in the book on the passport. I just got the book, by the way, on my desk this morning. Actually, it was on Sheik's desk, so I'll be reading it today. But his passport records, Columbia College, Harvard, baptism records, medical records.
Right.
These things are
all missing, not available to be inspected by the public. Barack Obama refuses to release them.
Dreams from My Father is nothing more than a PR stunt.
Right. And, these are serious issues. Barack Obama, it's not just whether he was born in Hawaii. Even the document Barack Obama released from the White House saying his father was Barack Obama Sr., then he was a dual citizen at birth. He was a citizen of the Commonwealth of Great Britain, and our founding fathers never meant a dual citizen at birth would be a natural-born citizen. It's not a question of whether he's a citizen, but under Article 2, Section 1, a natural-born citizen. And then on page 215 of the book, Exhibit 100, I show Ann Dunham's passport records from Indonesia, where she crosses off Barack Obama on her passport records, puts down his Indonesian surname, Soebarka. And again, this is an indication that Barack Obama had become an Indonesian citizen, may have had an Indonesian passport. Of course, Barack Obama won't release his passport records, so we don't know for sure. But if he was an Indonesian citizen, he again lost his natural-born citizenship status because he was a dual citizen while a child in Indonesia.
So, I know we're short on time. We'll get you back next week. I'm going to obviously read the book.
Well, I want to give you the basic hint of what happened.
Right.
And now, as I'm getting very close to having the whole story now, and it's pretty clear to me that Ann Dunham got pregnant in 1960, late 60. She'd been hanging around a bar, Bill Lederer's bar in Honolulu on Hotel Street. Bill Lederer wrote The Ugly American. And it looks like Ann Dunham wanted Barack Obama Sr. to be the father. She told her friends, Maxine Box and others in Seattle, that she was going to go off Barack Obama while he got his education. They were going to return together to Africa. He was going to be head of state eventually. She would be the first lady. I think Ann Dunham had this big fantasy life in terms of where she was headed. Best I can now piece it together, and I'm going to be increasingly writing about kind of filling out the story in WND. Ann Dunham, I think, went by herself I was just in Hawaii last week picking up additional information. Went by herself to Africa to try to convince Barack Obama's family to accept her. The grandmother picked her up in Nairobi, made sure she got to Mombasa, where the grandmother had brothers and sisters, never brought her to the home village. The baby was born. When Ann Dunham got back, she realized this dream was not going to work with Barack Obama. He had no interest other than using her to show the Immigration and Naturalization Service. He had an American wife and child, and that only lasted for a little while.
And Barack Sr.'s father was
Right.
adamant about
Adamant. Did
about
not
this.
want
No,
a white woman having his son's baby.
not at all.
At any rate, so this I think accounts for why Ann Dunham left Hawaii, and the estrangement, and Barack Obama seems to have senior seems to have displayed a great interest in impregnating women, but very little interest in being a father, having a long-term relationship with that woman as truly we would understand wife. At any rate, this I think begins to put together the story. And it makes the documents I've gotten from Kenya fit in place. Barack Obama Jr., the president, I think has many issues on eligibility, dual citizenship, which has not been examined. When they released the birth, I was in Hawaii last week, Peter. When I went to Hawaii, I went to the Department of Health and said, I'd like to see the long form paper birth certificate. It's going to be submitted to forensic examination. No one at the Department of Health would talk to me.
I know.
I went over to Kapiolani and I said, why didn't Barack Obama release his mother's, Kapiolani released the mother's patient records? And Kapiolani said if I didn't leave the premises immediately, they were going to call the police.
Let me do this, sir. How about Monday, and they'll give me a chance today, tomorrow's Thursday, and I got a really busy couple of days, or get the book finished, we'll have you back.
Fine.
You're honest to God, Jerry, you're on the right track. There's no doubt.
I'll be coming back. I'll come back on the show anytime you ask.
Done. I'm going to put you on hold. Speak with Greg, and maybe we can even do some of that on Friday, Greg, if you would. We're behind for news. We got a lot more to come. Stay here, 630 KHOW.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.